Well, welcome back. We're going to continue from where we stopped, and there were some things that were missing in our user model, which was the password. We have added that. The public ID, I think, was there. Then our created on, we had made sure that the default date and time upon creation of this model was what was added in, and hence that's why we have this default and the now method right there from Prisma. Then our wallet, we had to set up our PIN. Our account number needed to be above 32-bit integer, and that's why we have the big int. So those changes were implemented as well. For our next of kin, I think we didn't have some of this defaulting to be empty, and we had to make that default an empty space. So upon creating the user table, all we plan on doing is also initializing the next of kin table as well by making all of this empty, but ensuring that the user ID is being patched inside, so that whenever we want to update the data, all of that will go directly into this table right here. So I think that's just basically it. So let's also add our default to be now as well. Save that. Next up is the account model, and there's some few things I added. Number one is this generate OTP, which just generate like I think 5 characters for verifying the user, and that will be inside of the profiles table. You just call this create property, and inside you just pass in any field inside of the profile that you want to set up. In this case here, what we have here in our profile that is very important to us is the OTP, which we will need to verify the user, and the verification state will be toggled to false by default. So upon setting the OTP, this will be false and will prevent you from accessing inner parts of the application until you are verified, but as we progress, we'll make sure that works perfectly fine. The next thing we need to do now is to generate an account number for the user, and once that account number is generated, we'll also do the one-to-one relationship for the wallet. Basically what we'll do is set our balance to 0, put the account number in here, and also our PIN, which will be hashed with bcrypt. So if you haven't installed bcrypt, all you just need to do is simply run npm install bcry. After that, the next thing you need to do is actually install the types as well. So it will be at types /bcrypt, and that installation is complete. So if you install it, you can access the hash sync to be able to pass in the payload of whatever you want to hash and set the sorting value to at least 10. And the same thing is done for the PIN, because the PIN has to be encrypted so that it will not be visible for the user. The next step is to set up our next of kin. Like I stated earlier, the next of kin here in our schema, there's no need to fill all of those forms as you sign up. So we set this to empty, and basically what we are doing here is just patching what we are doing here is just passing the user instance inside of the next of kin. So next thing we need to do is actually ensure that that wallet's account number does not exist. So what we are doing here is a while loop, and we are looping through the wallet to be very sure that that account number doesn't exist. This is like 1 in a million chance, but we just want to hold those certainties down by using this while loop. So if we search and this comes back undefined, then we'll proceed to the rest of the code. Next up is our create account function. This is where we access that create property that is inside of our user model right here. So here we are accessing the create method right here like so, and we're just passing the entire body inside of it like that. But first thing we need to do is actually check if the email exists, and that is what we have here. Basically here we are doing find by email, and we're setting this to async, and we're passing down the email. So what we are doing is that we are searching to be very sure that the email actually exists or doesn't exist, as the case may be. But however, what this property method does here is that it just searches for that email and it returns it. asynchronously. So what we'll do here is call that check email first to be sure that the user doesn't exist. So here what we are doing now is we are going to find the user by the email, and if actually the email exists, what we are going to do here is simply throw an error and say the user the email already exists, and we'll do that by I think duplicating this like so. Change the status to I think 400. What we are saying is here is that the email already exists. To make sure our server is up and running by doing npm run dev. So now you can see we are connected to our database, and you can see our web server is on port 3000. So next we move to Postman and send that request. So you can see clearly here that the email already exists. If we move over to Neon, you can clearly see here from our user that the user with that email already exists, and that makes perfect sense. You can see the request returns successfully. So the next thing we need to do is actually make sure that all of these errors don't come out. So what I think I would do is actually make this a return so that it will be crude and not proceed to the next line. Okay, now you can see now that the request actually returns a 400, which is a bad request, and you can clearly see here that all of this error doesn't pop up because we have proper error handling. But we want to take this error handling to the next level. Here inside of our index.txt file, we have our error handler here. Basically what it does, it just takes in the next route, and it will receive precisely this error, which is set to any at the moment. But then one thing that we'll likely receive is our status code and our message, and that is what we want to set here. So by default, if there's no status code, it's going to throw a 500 and all that. So let's proceed into our controllers and call the next here. So I'll just copy this like that, and copy this and paste it here. Then our status code will be added like so. Status is supposed to be code. Our status code will be here, and what we're going to do is say 400. So this will prop down to the next. I'm just going to comment this out for clarity's sake, ensure that all of those changes are saved and ready to go. Then once it is ready, we can just simply head over to Postman and try this again. You can see that we have more details, and I'll have our stack trace, but as we progress, we'll try to see how we'll be able to make that work perfectly fine. See here we have that error handling. So what we just do here is just use the keyword return so that it will not proceed to the next line of code. Next thing we need to do now is our sign up. I already have some pre-filled data here. What we are doing here is we are first of all finding the email. If the email actually exists, this conditional statement will run, and we'll proceed to hashing the pass. We'll proceed to comparing the password that was passed into the hashed password. And once that password is correct, what we are going to do is proceed by using that public ID from our user schema right here in Prisma that was set to unique, and which was set to UID version 4 string here. So what we are going to do is take that value, and we are going to make a JSON web token out of it. This is supposed to be a secret file from our server. I'll just leave that to empty for now so that you can see how I think I'll just put hello here. I'll just put hello like so. And the next thing we need to do is actually set the duration which that JSON web token is going to expire, and that will be inside of an object. I think there is LPS intelligence, so I'm going to set expired in, and that will be just say 1 day. I think that's 1D. So we have our object here, which is the user public ID. Then we have our secret here. Then we have our expired in. Then this will return our token. But however, if the user does not exist, okay, this function will execute. So I'll have to use a return here so that we can have clean logs. Our return here will state that the email was not found, and we'll check our password. If everything proceeds fine, we'll continue. But I think this will be a much cleaner approach. I will just copy this like that and change this and invert this to be, so if this is invalid or undefined, what we'll do and say is password not correct. And we'll set that to false for status code as well. So the next thing we need to do is inside of our Postman, we're just gonna duplicate this because it's almost the same fields that we're sending across. So I'll click duplicate, and once that's done, I will change this, rename this to login, and I'll set the route to login. Now that on our route is not defined, so we just quickly have to set that up here like this. So what we're doing now is saying instead of sign up, we'll do login, and we'll change this to login from our controllers that's imported. We'll save that and check our server if everything works perfectly fine, and bam. Then what we'll do now is simply just try this, and you can see here we have our token that we can use to access protected routes. Now for clarity purposes, what we are supposed to do is actually check if the user is actually verified before we log that user in, but we'll have to wait and come back later and see how we can be able to add all of those functionalities right here. So now that we have all of this inside of our login, and we can check to see if everything works perfectly fine, we'll just come in here and take out some fewer things that are not really needed, and definitely it will be the same error. So let's revert the password and just set our, okay, so you can see here that 0 we added returned undefined for our password, and that returns password not correct. So with that said, we can proceed. Usually what is best practice is we don't choose specific errors. What we can say is username or password incorrect, since this is a fintech application, and this will enable people not to know what they are doing wrong, but rather if their email they use sign up is correct, they'll just proceed to that. So I'll just wipe the email out and also wipe the password out. Use my multiple cursors and see email or password is not correct. So I'll say correct so that it will make sense to the user that the errors are defined on changes of either the password or the username. Okay, let's come back to this secret key and let's see how we can be able to change it from hello to something much more secure. What I'm going to do now is actually you can go online and just generate a random string. I'll just maybe choose 2 lines like this. Then inside of my env, I'll simply just state this to be secret key. I'll just say JSON secret key, and this would be inside of a string. Paste that there, and I'll take out that space like that. This is good. So inside of my utils, my config, I'm going to pass my secret key inside of here like so, and I'll change this. I like this to be, so just come here so I don't make any typos, change that to JSON secret key, and also do that here. So this will be inside of my server pubs, and that work fine. So I was supposed to make this db. I know that some things may scream, and I'll just need to modify that since we have the power of TypeScript, and save everything. What we need to do is import this guy inside of our accounts controllers. So this will be config, yes, from utils config.server.jsonwebtoken secret. So this will show undefined, probably undefined because of TypeScript, and that is a strong advantage. So what we'll do here is actually change this to just super safe, like so. So I just come here and save this as well. So where are we now? I think everything works fine. This token should expire in 1 day. Next thing we need to do is to be very sure everything works as it ought to. So if I pass that in, you can see we have our beautiful token coming in right here. So we can work on this slowly and progressively. Here what we are going to start with for our wallet, if you don't have that file, you can just come into our controllers and create that wallet.txt file. This will handle any changes for wallet modification and other stuff. So let's start by setting up a function that will check balance. So this will be check balance. What this will do is it will take 3 arguments. Okay, so for my lazy self, I'll just copy this and put that inside of here. Import all of this guys from Express, and this guy from Express as well. So I'll just format this, and what I'll do is return that function. Okay, so what we are going to do here is we are going to actually return the balance of the signed in user. Okay, but before we do that, we have to head to Postman and ensure that our token was properly added inside of our authorization header, so that as we send it, we can be able to know the user that, you know, the account balance we are checking upon. And just for some also context reasons, whoever is signed in, once this endpoint is accessed, the token or the user tied to that token the balance will be returned. So I'll just do something fancy here, and I'll just see response.json will be, I'll just call this balance will just be 0. This is hard coded. I'll guess that will make a lot of sense. So inside of our routes, we are just going to make that available. So I'll just put a comment right here and state that this is for our wallet. I'll just duplicate this here, and I'll say user, take this up, let that space be there. So this is almost the same. I'll just duplicate that and change this to wallet, and I'll make this balance. So what I need here is to actually export this like so, and what I will do is I need to save that first, then I will do check balance. Alright, so with check balance endpoint available, I need to create new folder so that it will separate the consigns, and this will be called I'll rename this to call this wallet and save it like that. Then the next thing I need to do is actually add my request. This is a get request, and I'll just change this to get balance. Simple. So I need my routes. and it's almost the same thing with what we have here, and I will just change this like that. So this will not go to account, this will go to wallet / I think what I saved it was balance. Okay, so with that out of the way, what we just need to do is just hit this. Okay, we have a 404, so it's trying to access the route and it didn't find it because we have this as a post. I'll just change this to get, and wait for that to save real quickly. Okay, now the server is working and connected. You can see our balance returns 0. Okay, that's fantastic. Now what we need to do next is actually protect this route to make sure that whoever is accessing this route is a logged in user. First thing we need to do is on our Postman, we need to do some housekeeping rules. First thing we need to do is actually remove this URL from our Postman for all of these guys right here, and see how we can be able to store it inside some kind of variable. So in our EJS collection, what we need to do is click that, come to our variables, and inside here the first one we need to set is our URL. We need to set that URL initial value and current value, but you can leave the initial value and just make do with the current value for now. So what we need to do is copy that URL and paste it in our current value like that. Okay, so now we just need to save that, and inside of our URL, what we need to do is use curly braces, and you can see we have our URL pointing to our current address, which is this guy here. Okay, so we need to save that and repeat the same process for all of this. That housekeeping rule is really important. So the next thing we need to do now is we need to also do the same thing for our token. So now I will just change this to access token right here, and this will make sense as we progress. They usually have the access token and the refresh token, but maybe we might not do that now, but let's just leave it as token. Maybe later we could revisit all of this and save that. So our token is set. By default there will be no token set here. What we need to do now is inside of our login, we need to look for a way to grab this token and then store it inside of our token current value, and the only place you can do that is upon logging in. So I have a very simple script here, and this script will go inside of the test. It's very simple. Basically what we are doing here is, if our status code is 200, what we need to do now is we need to grab the JSON that is coming from there and precisely search for the key of the type token, and once we grab that token, we are setting it inside of this token variable that we have right here. So we are going to save this and click the send. So we can see here our token is back, and if we check here, you can see that token is set inside of here. So the next thing we need to do now is to ensure that that token is available on our authorization headers. So we just come to authorization and change this to bearer token. Bearer token has of the parameter is sensitive and yeah. So what we need to do now, just like we did for the URL, we just need to do the same for our token. And once we click that, you can clearly see that that's our current token right there. So we just need to just save this, and once that's saved, I think everything should work fine. Everything should work fine. So this is the authorization header approach. We might bump into the section headers as we progress. Possibly I think that's a much more secure approach, but we'll just make do with this for now so that you can also learn that and also use that for other projects, as we also make use of the session tokens as well. They all have their back and forths, and they also have their advantages and disadvantages, but for now we'll just make do with the authorization header. To create a file inside of our middleware, we can call this accounts.ts, leave it like that. Basically what we are going to do is, I think it has the same header style with this guy here, so I'll just copy everything and just do my rename. Copying and pasting is the go-to now for me. As a software developer, when you start your career, you get a good keyboard so you could type, and as you advance in your skill, you get a good mouse so that you can copy and paste. So let's change this to is logged in, like that. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to check our headers, and we just create a variable for that, and we'll call this auth headers. So in our request, the headers, we will find our authorization. Alright, so that's where that variable is currently at. So we could just log it out so that we can be very sure everything works perfectly fine. So save it like so, and we need to just copy this, and inside of our account, no, not our models, what we need to do, I just need to collapse all of this inside of our routes. Okay, what we need to do is set it up like this. Okay, but we need to actually import that. So basically what this proxy is doing is it will check whatever is right with the, it will check whatever is whoever is logged in, and it will do some certain configurations, and then what it will now proceed to do is, okay, passing some variables that will be available for this guy here. So we just need to save that, and you see that in our account it's logging. Basically what will be logged on is the entire token. So we could come back to our get balance and just tap it down. Okay, so now you can see that our token is being logged on. Now if you check very carefully, you will notice that the code is stalling seriously, because we need to call the next route here. So basically what the next will do is, hey, we are done here, proceed to the next code that, or the next function that may probably be in the stack for our middleware, or for our request that we initially set up. So let's try this one more time, and you will see that request will be much faster, because it went from here, I printed out the barrier token, and then it went to the next available route. So I'm just going to copy this line of code and do some serious modification on it. This line of code, what we are doing here is we are basically checking to see if anything good is coming out from the header, and if nothing is coming out from the header, and it doesn't start with the barrier keyword, what we're just doing is just going next. But instead of just putting next, I will return it like that, and I'll just have to proceed to the message. Proceed by putting the message and just saying user no, I'll just say no token header added or set. I'll just maybe just say you need to log in. Log in. That's it. So the next thing we need to do is put our status code like so, and say 403, because that's not allowed. Alright, okay, so that's it. This will return to our error handler like that. And the next thing we need to do is actually import jsonwebtoken. I'll need to change this to come from configs, which is in our utils, and then we'll access the server and wipe this out and provide the JSON web token. this function doesn't exist, we need to set that up as in a bit. But I need to import jsonwebtoken from jsonwebtoken. So put that like that. I need to close that for real estate reasons. Now we're having an error here showing that the async is not configured in our method, and all we just need to do is just set it up here that this is an asynchronous method. Alright, so with that out of the way, what we need to do is actually set this up to be sure that everything works as it ought to. Next, we need to import this, but we need to set that find one like that. So I'll just rename this to find by public ID. So I just do public ID like that, and I'll just do public ID. Now in our accounts middleware, I just need to log our public ID first to be sure that's what we configured, because I know that inside of our controller stores account we set user to hold the public ID. Let's try this out. The same error might come out, but then at least we have something to work with. Yes, so inside of our public ID we have that user, which is the actual user public ID. So what we just need to do is just change that to now middleware and say public ID dot user. Okay, save that, and that should also be here as well. User, save that. Okay, so I'll just hit save. Now that that's there, we just need to simply try this again, and we can see our balance returns successfully. You can see our public ID for the user available right here. So that this might be overly redundant. Probably I might make some changes to make sure that it's just the public ID that goes in here. I think maybe we should just do that now, so that we can eliminate those redundancies. So what I'll do here, I did it this way probably so that we can pass in more fields, but I'll change this to public ID instead. And what I'll do is I'll come to my middleware, change this to user payload, and this will be user payload public ID. Save that. Once that's saved, first thing we need to do is actually log in so that we can override the token that we are currently having. Then we'll proceed to check balance. Okay, now we have our balance coming in. So inside of our wallet, what we can just basically do is simply log out response dot locals dot user credentials. So we need to be sure that there are no logs here so that it won't mess up the entire preview. Alright, so with that out of the way, all we just need to do is just hit save, and we'll have that user credential logged out here, the entire user payload. So let's quickly try this one more time. We have our same request, but however, if you check here, you can see you have the entire instance of the user available for us to tinkle around with. So basically what we're going to do now is, now we have that logged in, we can find by ID. So inside of our account we need to have another models called wallet dot, what we need to do is have wallet.tx, and I'll just create this constant wallet. That will be an object, and I'll call this get user wallet. This will be a method, So I have that here, and this will be another function as well. So basically what we need now is the ID of the user, and this will be a number. So what are we doing here? And I'll use this as case study. Just copy all of this right here, and we'll paste it right here like so. And I think we need to change this to async as well. No, not asset. You're not testing anything here. So this will be async, and I need to import Prisma and say Prisma is equal to Prisma client. So like that. A class, we need to make use of the new keyword and get an instance of it. Okay, so what we are doing here, instead of find user, this is supposed to be wallet. So what we are using to search is the user ID, and which will actually be the same. I just like using the ES7 side of things, and bam, that was perfectly fine. So what we need to do is just simply export wallet. I'll just need some space here so that this will be very readable. Okay, next thing we need to do now is inside of our wallet, it is get user wallet. Just import it, and inside of my, I think I need to just close everything that I'm not using, and I'll come to my accounts, controllers, and I'll have to, no, this is what I want actually. So I'll just close others, and I'll, so inside of our wallet, just need a space, press enter, that should import. Then what I will do now is actually roll this like so, and this will try to access the, so let me check. What I'm searching for is the ID, so this will be the ID, and I'll just const make this wallet like that, and I'll log wallet, save. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's wait for our server to kick in, and that's done. What we can do is now try this out. We'll likely have the same response because everything has not been changed. So this is a promise, and we need to await it. I need to change this to await and make the entire function an asynchronous function, because I don't want to use callbacks. And okay, now that's done, we can just send the data, and that will be the same response. But however, you can see the payload of the user. I think this is not supposed to be here, so I'll just go to Neon and check that account number to know why that string is there. Okay, I think what it's trying to tell us is that's just basically, what it's trying to tell us is that just basically a number. Yeah. Alright, so what we can do now is we'll remove some certain things from this wallet. So I think that works, because we know that by default there will definitely be a balance and an account, because it successfully passed through the supposed procedure. So we can have that returned. So let's wait for that to save, and let's check it right here. Our balance and our account number will be sent back to the user. Oh good, we have errors. Let's see. Do you okay, do not know how to serialize big int? Instead of returning this as a string, I will just force the type to be number, and save that. And then once that's saved, what I need to do next is actually get, okay, so that runs So I'll just pass it like that, and we should have our balance and our account number returned to us. So that's perfectly fine now. So the next thing we need to do now is to actually check. All we need to do now is actually check if this works. So I will first say no auth, and I will try passing that, and I'll see that 401 you are not logged in. And if I put my bearer token back and try to access the protected route, you can clearly see that we are logged in. So the next part is for us to credit our wallet, and for us to credit our wallet we are going to make use of paystack for that, and that's gonna be very exciting. Alright, so let's proceed to adding a request, and we'll rename this and say credit wallet. So this will be the first one. So it's almost the same with this, but the stages that will follow first is the initialization. What init is saying is give us a URL, we'll take that URL and we'll complete the payment somewhere. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. If it doesn't, we'll proceed and you see that play out. I'll just have to close all the tabs so I have more real estate here. Okay, next thing we need to do is actually commit all of these changes. Alright, so we have that pushed in. The next thing we need to do is actually, I'll just copy all of this and change this to init, add, I'll just say credit wallet. I'll just remove this one here like that, leave this blank, just format this for now. Or basically I'll just maybe return I'll just return URL. I'll just make that an empty string. This is also protected too, and you will see that play out. So let's come to our route here, and we're just going to duplicate this and change this to credit. Okay, so that's credit, and I think I used in that's in credit. It's supposed to be init, initiate credit. That makes more sense. So I'll just save this and I will come over here and leave it like that. Let's try this. Okay, so that you need to be logged in. Okay, so what I need to do now is set up my bearer token and try this again. I'll try this again to actually be sure everything works as it does. So you can see that's not what is supposed to happen. This is supposed to be wallet init credit. Let's check init credit. Okay, yeah, so it's still going here, so I need to actually import the init credit route like that. Save that, and let's see, just wait for it to finish up. Okay, that's cool. So let's try this now, and we can clearly see our results here for our URL for our payment method. So let's quickly hook up our paystack. Like I said, if you don't have an account for paystack, it's pretty easy and handy to get one quickly. Just basically spin up one that will say, okay, I want to just do for testing. I'll set up my business later. That's the one that's could get you by for this process. Then maybe later, if you want to take this to the next level, like maybe add the wallet to a game or something, you can now decide to put in a business or something inside of it. Okay, so let's dive in. So basically what we are going to do is send a request to paystack with a unique data from us and tell paystack that, hey, this is this user and he wants to make a certain payment. He wants to make a payment through paystack and confirm that payment and give us something in exchange. With simplicity's sake, what we are going to make use of is Axios. I don't know if we've installed that. Axios. So I'll just create a new tab to npm install Axios like so. I think that's how it's spelled. That's what iOS. Yep. By default, I guess that the conventional Axios has the LPS for TypeScript. Okay, so I'll just set some few things. Number one, does our platform want to have certain charges? If we don't want to have that, then that's fine. But however, we need to implement some certain mechanisms here. Number one is how much do you want to credit your wallet? Okay, so we'll do amount like that. I'll equal this to request body. Alright, so with that amount gotten, we need to set our payload for paystack. So I'll just do constant payload. Payload will be number one, our email. Our email is coming from here. So this is it. So we'll do dot email like that. Next thing we need to do is we need to set in the amount that we are going to send across. Okay, so this is what we are sending. I think I just need to remove this constant and equal like that, so it's very neat and easy to understand. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is set up our headers. Our headers will contain the payload that we want to send to paystack, and the headers will be the paystack secret key, and that's the most important one for now. But these headers will be an object, and we're going to pass in authorization, and authorization will take in a string. I'll just make this backticks, and this will be bearer, and then what's next will be the actual paystack secret key. So I'm going to copy this and paste it right here. But however, this will come from the config, the server, and I will call this is supposed to be here. So let's put that here. If the keys becomes too much, I might need to create another property here and call that keys. I think I should just do that instead. So I'll just call this keys. So this will be keys, and so I'll change this to pay. Yeah, so that works fine. Keys.paystack secret keys. It's redundant, but that will make sense as we progress. So I'll just duplicate this, change this to this, like that. Okay, Alright, so I need to put that in my env file. So wallet is screaming that something is not right, and I'm sure my account logins will also scream too that something is not right. So I just need to use keys instead. I think that's the only place where I used the secret key. And I think that also in my models as well. I may have. Okay, I don't think I have need for making use of the secret keys to hash anything. Okay, so that's fine now. Next thing we need to do now is change this to keys, and this will be paystack secret key. Okay, so now we have our header set. What we need to do is make use of that axios. So this will be a constant response. We will go to axios.post, so post request. Then now post request, we need to have a URL which we are going to access paystack. I think that URL should be declared here. Constant is equals to URL. I just need to go have a look at the docs to know the actual URL. Then we'll have our headers. I think we'll have our our body, rather. I'll say payload instead. Then will be an object headers. Yeah, so that's fine, like that. Duplicate response. Okay, so that's duplicate. So I'll just change this to response. So say paystack. I'll just leave it like that and say paystack. The paystack response. What we need now. So I think that this will hold the URL. No, I'll just leave that like that, and it will be paystack response. I think that's a promise, so it will be the data. So something to point out with paystack is that it actually sets its payment, it's actually setting its currency to Kobo. So for you to actually make your payments go through the payment gateway, what you need to do is actually multiply it by 100. So this will be amount times 100 and send that across. So once that's sent over, what will happen is, in your post request, you need to set in the certain amount that you want to credit your wallet with, and click send, and that should push back a URL. So we have errors on our server, so let's quickly check it out real quick. So it says 405 not allowed. So our URL was not setting, so let's quickly go in and set our URL so that we can be able to have all of those data. So I'll just copy this from the documentation, put in our paystack URL, save this, and let's try this again. That's in. Let's simply try this again. Okay, so we have another error. So it's saying invalid keys. I think that we need to look for a way to get this to work perfectly fine. So let me wrap all of this inside exception handler blocks and try catch precisely. So our secret key is not correct. So apparently we're unable to get our secret key from our environment variable. That's because we didn't import the .env/config JavaScript module, and that will be able to search through that file and pass through all of the envs and pass them inside of the the env property so that it could be able to be accessed, and when we had that import, we were able to make all of those variables come to our application. So now if you try this out now inside of our account, if we try this now, we tried it earlier and we saw that URL. So if you copy that URL, see it's a unique one, so if you copy that URL and paste it in the browser, you're actually going to be redirected to paystack to complete the payment. Alright, so moving on, so you could get this URL and you could make do with something like mobile app or something. At the end of the day, just makes the payment. Then once the payment is done, we can set in a callback either from your front end or at the end of the case, as the case may be, your mobile app or thereabout. But however, a webhook will be able to confirm the payment for us, and that makes it much more secure. So what we need to do is set up our webhook. I created the folder webhooks, made it plural because subsequently we might have more webhooks here. This is just for paystack. We might have more webhooks for probably Flutterwave and Stripe, as the case may be. It just keeps building and expanding so that we can have a medium of fallback in case each payment gateway fails to complete or initialize the payment. Format this like that. So what will happen is this will receive the signature if it's correct. If it's not correct, it will just send 200 back, okay, so that it won't spam the server. But actually there could be some mechanisms that will set in place. Okay, so there's something that we haven't done here. Alright, so what is that? That is for our model. So I'll go to Prisma and we'll look at the transaction. Alright, so in this case here we have our reference ID, a payment gateway when it was created on, the user initiating the payment and all that stuff. We haven't made do with this, and I think it's time we set that up right now. So I'll go to our models and I'll set transactions.ts and just import Prisma. Just import Prisma clients like that, and I will create an instance of it. Prisma is equals to new Prisma client like that. Then what I want is to create an object for our transaction. This should be in capital letters. Then the first thing we need to do is create a transaction. So I'll just do a simple prop here and say create. Alright, so what I will need to create is basically the user ID, which is a number, and the next thing I will need to do is to force it to see that's an object with the arrow function, and then I will call that. So I will just probably return, which I might not use, but it's good we return. So this is Prisma dot transaction, and this will be an object. Let's see where, this will be data. So so I need to specify dot create, and I need to say data, and what am I creating? Okay, so I need to also pass some other things here. Well, the first thing I need to do is ensure that the user ID is there, the created on is also there, the payment gateway will also reflect the payment gateway here. Payment gateway should be a string. The next one is the reference ID as well. Reference ID should also be a string. what else are created on shouldn't bother us because it's automatic. So let's see, this is check, is a check, user ID is also check. So unique needs to be removed out of here because we might have more than one transaction. So now wallet, what I'll do now is I'm going to grab, I know that somewhere up top I was able to see this. So this is the reference ID that will be stored in our database inside of our reference ID. So let's export this. How did I export all this? Yeah. Okay, so just export it like that, and inside of here just close this so we could have more real estate view. So here what I could do is I will simply here, before it exits, what I would do is I will say transaction dot create. So I'm going to do a spread now. Here I'll do a spread, and that will be, this will be ID over here. The next one will be our payment gateway, so it will be paystack. It will be paystack in this case, and that will be awesome. So just might need to await this. Was that awaited? Let's come back and let's see. Okay, server works fine. Now what we need to do now is initialize the payment, and if everything okay, we have 502 now. Let's see where we are getting things wrong. Okay, so I didn't await this. This is an async method, so I'll just save this and try this now. Once that's safe, let's see how that goes, and leave this save. Okay, so now we have this. Let's check our database and check our transactions, and voila, yeah, you can see it clearly here. We have a reference ID, we have paystack, date, user ID, stuff. Okay, so that's done now. Okay, so now what we need to do now is we need to set a state for our transaction. Okay, that's very important, and we didn't look at that. So let's quickly do that now. So how do we do it? Let's change this at status, and we'll set a default status to our transaction. So this will be pending. We need, I think enum types will do. So for prototyping sake, we'll just leave this as pending, and we'll run that migration. While the migrations are running, we need to find a transaction. Okay, so I'll just duplicate this, and I'll say find by reference, and this will not be create, this will be find so this should be find unique. I think I might need to go back to the reference ID and make some changes. So this will be where reference ID isn't unique. and that will cause some issues, so we need to specify it to be unique, and I need to cancel. Okay, so with that being unique, I might have to restart my server so that the ORM engine can pick all of those new changes. So I think while that is trying to make those migrations, I will be on standby. The next thing we need to do is to set up ngrok for reverse proxying. This will just simply be able to help us in development to send data from our payment gateway to our app locally. When we get to production, we'll replace the reverse proxy URL with what is actually on our server, because our payment gateway cannot be able to send data directly to our local machine. So you could just do ngrok http and specify the port after that 233. Once you specify the port, it will provide you with an address. Just basically copy the link and head to paystack and tell paystack, hey, make this my webhook URL. So I'll just replace this like this. So the entire route is where will be hit once the transaction gets to paystack and is complete. It's sending back data to your application. So you need to specify that route. It's very, very important. So I'll be doing that directly here. I might just do that here instead. So I'll just duplicate this. It's a post request, and I'll say webhook, and I'll call this paystack like so. So I need to take out the middleware, and I need to do webhook, paystack webhook. Yes, brilliant. So paystack webhook, let's go in here. So I'll just copy this like that, and this will do API v1 and like that. So I need to remove one like that, exactly. So what I need to do now is click save so that paystack will register that, and we will need to come over to our webhook. What I need to do now is to console log our body. I just console log our body, and this is under a variable called event and all the stuff. So let's do one transaction. I'll change this to 12,000. Run this, and I'll have to copy the link, and I'll just put it here. So that's fast. Just click on 12,000. Payment successful. Now you can clearly see from our webhook that the next second you can see the status code is sending to our webhook via ngrok. And if you come over here, you can actually see, okay, send is deprecated. Might need to come up with something else. Well, definitely you can see the time to leave, just one. And let's check our entire payload. See here that our event for successful transaction was showing successful transaction charge success. That's for the event. You can see the ID of the request. You can see the amounts coming in, and next you can see the reference of the transaction also coming in as well. And so that's perfectly fine, really fine. You can also see the customer details, which is precisely the email. We didn't send the first name and last name, but the email is unique to each user on the platform. So basically the transaction works successfully. So what we'll do now is inside of our inside of our transaction, we are going to find by reference ID, and the reference ID will be inside of event dot. So this will be inside of event dot data. So So it will be event.data.reference like that. So once we find it, we might need to await change this constant, make it a small letter transaction, and this is supposed to be a constant, not console, and format that properly. So so what we are going to do now is, first of all, we always do the error handling first, but mind you, this should be inside of this like that. So what we are going to do and say, if this returns null, we're just basically going to send a status code of 200, say payment transfer completed, and just put a classic emoji sign there. So the transfer completed, not successful. So what we are saying here is the transfer was successful, but we know reference we got right here doesn't exist, and that's why we have this. Okay, so next we are going to create and say update by ID. So this, I think the reference ID makes sense. So this will be like this. So say instead of find, it will be update by reference ID. So this wouldn't be the user ID, rather this will be the reference ID. So this will be here like that. This will be a string, and so this will be find I think there should be an update. Yeah, so update where, I think it's data. I say, so we have where is this, then we should have our data. Our data is equal to, so what are we updating? We are updating our reference, not our reference, we are updating our status to completed. So that's just basically it. I'll just make this ID because it will be really reusable, in the future. This will be a number find, so this will be find update by ID. That makes a lot of sense. Then this will be transaction dot update by ID. Yes, update by ID will take in transaction dot ID. Voila. Basically what it's just doing is just changing status to secured, but I would like to take this to another level and call this payload. I'll set it to any, put a comma here, and what I would do, instead of this, I'll just do a spread operator and say payload like that. So here I'll put a comma and just pass this as an object like that. So status, so this will now be reusable anytime, anywhere, and it mustn't only be the status that will update, as the case maybe. On this transaction is completed, the next thing we need to do now is make do with our finance and update our wallet. Alright, so we do another await and do wallet, and what we are now doing is get user wallet, but in this case the user wallet, let's see, receives the user ID, and the user ID is actually inside of transaction the user ID. Once we get it, the next thing we need to do now is whatever was inside the balance, we need to update. Okay, we need to update it, and increase it by the amount of money coming in. I think paystack, once you have submitted it as Kobo, it's on the server side, it actually makes the changes, and once it's making the payment, it will actually show up as what's it called, as a normal currency. But when it is confirming the payment and it's coming back to you, it will actually look for it will actually come back as the Kobo currency. So that's something I just want you to note as we progress. So let's see wallet is equals to this. There should be a constant. Next thing we need to do is get user wallet by ID. So they should be, just take out the user part out of it, so they should be updates by ID. So this will be find many, but rather we should have updates. We have our user ID, but I'll change this to just ID. And once multiple cursors taken out, and once that's done, I'll just say data like that. I'll just do payload instead. I'll just do payload. I'll do payload, and I will just say payload is equals to any, like that. On our wallet, we can just create a variable, call this amount, and amount will be equal to what's in the wallet balance plus what's in the transaction. Okay, so this is a problem because inside of my transaction I didn't set up the particular currency that I am planning to receive. So let's do that real quick. So this will be a float. So inside of my wallet, my balance is an int. I need to change this to a float. Copy that here and change this here, right there, because the transaction needs to hold the amount that you're planning to receive. So I'll just say just call this transaction amount. It should be like this, transaction amount updated. Okay, all of this should have been duly noted. Please bear with me. Okay, alright, so while that is ongoing, the next thing we need to do is actually on our transaction side of things. Here we need to set the amount. It's very important. So I'll just do amount like that. And I'll just duplicate this at the end and say amount as well. So wait for that to save. For while that is migration is going, we'll check out I think wallet. Yes, we need to add the amount as well here. Okay, so we just watch those migrations coming, and let's see how everything goes in. So save this. The migrations were not successful. It didn't let the migrations come to, because I think we already have those tables populated, but I'll have to delete those data. It's not really important. Well, okay, however, you might not need to delete it, or you just need to just set at default to 0. Okay, with that default value saved in, all we just need to do now is make the migrations all over again. Okay, now we have our migrations done. We can now create with a certain default amount setting, and then every other thing works fine. This amount comes from the particular amount that we are trying to initiate. Then for our transactions, we are creating with a certain amount, and at the end of the day, once we are finding by ID, somehow we'll be able to update that amount. I'm gonna save everything, stop my server, and restart it again to close this. So what we are saying here is, okay, with the reference that we are getting from paystack, find the actual user. Okay, find the actual transaction where the reference. Once you find it, if it doesn't exist, just return transaction completed, so that it will have a sense of completion for the malicious attempt. But if this is false, proceed and continue. Then the next thing you have to do is to actually, with that user ID, run this and initiate the keyword completed. Alright, once you put in completed, the next thing you have to do now is you need to get user wallet. Okay, simply pass in the transaction, the actual user that you want to update. Once you grab that user, okay, you simply, and it doesn't exist, you just return the same thing you did here. That's for transaction. Yeah, you just run the 200 so that everybody can be happy. But we know that wallet exists, so we'll proceed here to say, okay, what was in the previous balance, grab it. Okay, once you grab it, what was in the transaction, that amount, we need that amount, so sum the two of them up together, find the wallet by ID and run that update. So as simple as that. Then once everything is complete, we are going to see transaction successful. We don't see it, but paystack will. Okay, so we just save all of this, and I'll just change this to JSON, and I'll just leave it empty like that. Okay, just leave it empty like that. Okay, so let's put this to action. Let's head to Postman. Simply make the payment for 12,000. So I think I'll just copy it again, come here and paste it. So that quickly takes us to the successful page. Then once I click this, watch, immediately it hits my webhook. Then once it hits my webhook, okay, definitely nothing showed up here as a form of error. I'll just need to go to my Neon database, go to my tables, and go and check my transaction. Okay, we still have this as pending, and if this is still showing pending, then it means that the transaction wasn't successful. So this here is transfer. So that's where the mistake came in. So it should be charged to successful, and it should be transferred to successful and not charged to successful. So with this change to charge to success, what we are going to do now is simply initiate the transaction to credit the wallet and see how all of those changes take effect. So I'm just quickly going to initiate another transaction. As you can see here, our token is expired, so what we're simply going to do is actually log in so that we can get fresh tokens. And once the login is complete, we can now try this again since our token. So all we need to do is just copy this URL, put this in our browser, and simply complete the transaction to make it a success. Then once that's completed, we can see our post request got sent to our ngrok reverse proxy, and that came out 200. So I'll just simply go to our logs. Here you can clearly see that first log that we had was our event. You can see that was a success charge, and that means the transaction was indicating pending. And the next part we have is our wallet, and you can clearly see here that the wallet balance initially is 0, and at this point this wallet balance should increment. And for us to find that out, we can do is simply head to our wallet, and you can clearly see here that our balance is updated here. So if we go to our transaction, clearly see here that it is completed. One quick observation I want to point out is at this point where we are finding by reference ID, the transaction is currently at the state called pending. But however, we know that the security mechanisms from paystack, which is our payment gateway, will definitely be a unique transaction. However, we need to add some security measures into it by telling the system that the status should be pending upon search. So this way, once we are coming to our system, we are finding the transaction that is pending, and then simply return that to the user, which is in this case our webhook. Then that all of the transaction will complete successfully, because we are only updating transactions that are pending, so that no one can actually find their way around the system and try to always make use of pending transactions, or just about even successful transaction, because this could be successful and they will tweak with it and they'll just do some fake updating, and at the end of the day they'll somehow credit the wallet. So this is it. So thank you so much for staying up till this very moment. In our next part, what we are going to do is add notification, a custom based notification that will tell the user that here are some, your wallet just got credited. And also after the notification, what we can add is the ability for us to share in the next part, so stay tuned for that. And also the deployment as well, and the source code will be available on the third part. So do stay tuned, like and subscribe if this is the kind of content you like, and also hit the like button and share to others that may likely want to tap into this knowledge. And I'll see you in the next one.